Hello and welcome to another installment of Noseman Knows. Because, yes, you know it. Noseman indeed knows. Anyway, so I was doing a camera animation and you won't believe what happens next. I made a camera animation. Anyway, so this is called clickbait. And this is lesson number 1. You can just shut down the video now and you know what clickbait is. But since I'm the nose man, I will explain a few things on camera animations. Now, one thing you need to remember, and it's very important, is that there are so many different ways to do camera animation. And you will see all sorts of videos on the internet that show all sorts of methods. My method is my method, and that should be enough. So here I have a city made of electronic components and my beautiful face spinning around on the billboards. So I'm going to do a flyby as you saw in the original animation, and I am going to set a few principles which I need to work. I'm going to rough out the approximate positions of the camera at certain points and use that as a driver to drive my animation. And in order to do that, my preferred way is to go to these key points and add cameras. So I like this framing. I add a camera, and this camera now has assumed that position I had. Okay, so I can click on this and it will go to that position. So let me deactivate it. So this is my initial position. The next thing I want to do is go here. I want to pass over this little thing, so I'm going to come close to this thing. So I'm going to add another camera. Then I want to go all the way pretty much close to the end and quite low. Good. I'm going to add one more camera here. Then I want to go somewhere in here. Okay, so I'm going to be looking upwards. There you go. So here's the other camera. Then I'm going to go through these two objects. I want to center on that little bugger there. That's where I want to be. I want to be looking at that sort of. Add another camera, then in here, somewhere over there. Add another camera, then I'm going to straighten out over here and go in. There we go. Good. Add another camera and then just finalize where my logo is. Good. So we have these 8 cameras here. So I'm going to start from here, then go here, then go here, 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 and right at the end. Fantastic. Now let's see what challenges we will find. I can use another camera. Let's call this anim cam. And I can use a really good tool which is called the motion camera. Tag camera morph, set it to multi-morph, and I'm going to drag all these cameras, which I'm going to make a group out of them. So Alt-G, make a group, call them cameras. And I want to reverse the order. So 4 above 5, and yeah, put this on top, then put 1. I'm doing it in a different order to confuse you a bit. So there you go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and camera 0.0, just to be consistent. Excellent. Now what I can do is grab this bugger here, lock it, get all the cameras, drag them in here, unlock it, and now I can just activate my anim camera and just scrub through the blend, and it's going to go. And you can see it's doing some odd, weird things here. Right, let's see why this is happening. So I'm going to go to my default camera, get rid of my city all, and get rid of my cameras from the viewport. And you can see that red line, which is the line that's generated by the camera morph. And you can see that we have the soft 1 and the soft 2, which are 2 different paths. Now, let me show you something else now. So I've got all the cameras selected, and go to MoGraph and create a tracer object. Select the tracer. You can see all the cameras are loaded because I had them selected when I created it, and say connect all objects. And that white line is the spline that's generated by connecting the positions of these cameras. Now, I don't want it to be linear. I'm going to make it cubic, and let's make this uniform. Okay, don't use anything else. Use uniform so that the speed of your camera on this spline is going to be uniform. That's all you need to remember. So I'm going to make this 100. Now watch this. If I set this to Akima, then the Akima is the same as soft 2. If I set this to soft 1, then I think it's the cubic, which is soft 1. So cubic and Akima are the 2 spline models, which the mode 1 and mode 2 imitate. But the upside is that the spline goes through the positions of the cameras. So if you see the cameras, you will see the spline goes exactly through the positions of the cameras. The problem is that I don't like this particular spline, either of these splines. It doesn't work with what I'm trying to do. I want something a bit smoother, even if it's not that accurate. And that spline is actually the B-spline. You can see that the B-spline kind of cuts corners, and it never really goes through the objects itself. Okay, but I like it because it's smoother. All right, and again, don't forget, intermediate points uniform. So I'm going to use this tracer object. So I'm going to drag this down here. Let me hide everything else. I'm going to select everything, press Alt-G to hide them, and say temp. There you go, so I don't have a huge mess under here. And what I'm going to do is, instead of the morph, I'm going to right-click on my anim camera and add an align to spline. Put it after the tracer. You don't have to, just to make sure. Drag, click on the align to spline, drag the tracer in here. So now if I activate this, now this is what controls my camera movement. Okay, let me turn on my city again. So let's go to the align to spline. Let's move things around. You can see that we're not that accurate, but the motion is a bit smoother. Now, if for any reason we go through a wall or something, we're going to fix that by moving the cameras around. Now, to begin with, let's create some keyframes. So frame 0, position 0, frame 300, position 100. Right click to set this to a linear, so show F curve in the animation. So right click, animation, show F curve, and now we can see the F curve only for that value. Click here, press Command A to select all. So again, click here, press Command A to select all. Oh, come on. Make it linear. Sometimes Command A doesn't work, or my fingers don't work. Anyway, we have a linear motion now. Rewind, and now we have this motion here over my B-spline. Nice, avoiding objects, nice, avoiding objects. Oops, we went through the wall. So let's find which camera is the camera that's responsible for that. It's towards the end. I think it's 5, 6, 5, 4. So from 4 to 5, we go through that wall. So one thing I can do is select 5 and activate the anim camera. And using either the locks here, I'm going to move that camera to the right, there we go, or to the left. Oh, something weird's happening here, which I don't like, so I'm going to undo a couple of times. Whenever something happens, just press undo. So I'm going to select this, go to the coordinates, and use this instead. There we go. Just bring it out there. So I've just moved camera 5. So again, let's take a look. We go through here, then turn left, then right, then we go close to the wall, not through the wall anymore. Good, and I can even move camera 5 a bit more to the right. Yep, and sometimes you may need to refresh. Good. There you go. Over that way. Whoops, we're clipping a wall. See? There we go. So let's go to the previous camera, which is camera 4 now, and just move it slightly that way. There we go. So now we're avoiding all the walls. Excellent. See? Avoid, 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 and back to the end. Good. Now, this is not very accurate, but we can always go and fix this. Anyway, who cares? We're going to fix it later on by changing the orientation of our camera at the end. Good. And that is fantastic. So let's close this. We have this camera. And now we need to deal with the banking. Now, the way I prefer to deal with the banking is by creating a user data control. So first of all, I'm going to make this a child of a null. So Alt-G, call this cam control, and you don't need to do that. I just like to do it. And I'm going to go with a null selected to user data, add user data, and I'm going to add what's called banking. Press tab. I want it to be a float slider. I want it to be minus 100 to 100, so it's kind of a steering wheel, left and right. And I'm just going to add a group, drag it outside, name it controls, tab, and make the banking a child of the controls. This way, we're going to have a controls tab here instead of something saying user data. I just like it. It's nicer. the reason you're going to do this is because if you hand this over to someone else, it's more obvious what's going on. Or if you drop a project and just start working with it a few months down the line. Excellent. Now I need to control the banking of the camera with this user data. So I can go and say right click here and say expressions, set driver. So this is the driver. Go here, right click here, expressions, set driven absolute. Excellent. So now if I double click this, it's set up everything I need. I need to make some very slight differences. So go to range mapper, go to node, and the input range is %. The output range, it says degree, but actually radians works better. And in the parameters now, so I'm going to move this to my other monitor. You don't need to see it for the time being. You can see that we get a full rotation to the left and a full rotation to the right. I want to make it a bit more granular. So I want this to give me about, I would say, an eighth and another eighth here. So what's the easiest way of doing that? Well, bring your range mapper, select it, and instead of input, don't touch the output. You don't have to. But the input, you can say, if you want to make it an eighth, just say from 0 to 800, it's going to go a full rotation. But because we can't go more than 100%, it's going to limit to an eighth, which is 45 degrees. Excellent. So let me just zero this out and drag this over here on the HUD, right click, show always, and here we go. We have left and we have right. Fantastic. Double click here, zero this out, and let's go and add our banking. So at frame 0, this is the banking I want, so add a keyframe. Now we're going to go somewhere here. So at this point I want it to start turning left, so I'm just going to give it a few degrees this way, add a keyframe. Then we get to this point here, I want it to start turning that way just to counter our banking. And then you can see now over here I want it to turn a bit, and then over here I want it to have a maximum banking or close to maximum banking, add a keyframe. Then we go here where at this point I want it to have a lot of banking on this side, so add a keyframe. I keep forgetting it and I'm moving my mouse. Good. And then I want to go at this point here and just do this. I'm going to fix it later on. Go here to the other side just to compensate, so add a keyframe, then go here, straighten it out, 0 or a bit more as an overshoot, and then by the end I want this to be 0 and add a keyframe. So now this is what I have. I'm going a bit to the left, a bit to the right, then sharp turn to the left, and then sharp turn to the right, and then over here. So you can see that we just need to move our keyframes a bit. We're going to do this in the timeline, and although why not, it looks like it's kind of skidding out of place. I don't mind this, actually. And again, at any point, if you want to fix your path, just go and move your cameras, and then you can always go to your banking, right click and animation, show F curve. And the one thing which I always insist that when people are doing animation, this needs to be nice and smooth. This is not nice and smooth. You can see it's got all these pointy parts. So for example, we don't even need this keyframe. We can get rid of it. And it's nice and smooth like that. A bit more this way. Let's go here. See, that doesn't make much sense. I'd rather go something like this, and maybe something like this. There you go. It needs to look nice and smooth. This is a bit pointy, but it's smooth enough. So let me put it on my other monitor. Let's see what this does now. So there we go. A bit to the left. It's not real time because I have a very, let's say it's not cheap, but not the best graphics card on the planet. There you go, turning left. Then we're going to do a turn right, nice, and zoom. There you go. I like it. I'm pretty sure you're going to do a better job than I have, and I like it. Excellent. Now what we're seeing here is that we have a constant velocity in what we're doing. and we can create a playblast using hardware rendering, but it's a constant velocity. And I want to be able to retime this. So this is going to be the final part of the tutorial. And basically what we are trying to do is retime everything, but by keeping the relationship of our banking and our position. So if I select both these, you can see from frame 0 to frame 300, I've got this relationship. Okay, as we have this steady speed of moving on the spline, we get these banking angles. I want to be able to control both of these using one F-curve so that I can make my airplane or whatever it is accelerate or decelerate. But I need these relationships to be the same, because if the banking is not synchronized with the actual position of my camera here, then it won't make any sense when we're banking or moving stuff and so forth. It won't happen when we need it, okay? Because we're banking when we're going right. And at this position here is where it goes right. Anyway, let me show you how to do that. Now, if you select any parameter here on the left, you'll see that one of the attributes is called the time track. And it's called the time track because basically it controls time. Now, how do we create a time track? Although there are a million tutorials that talk about that, I'm going to show you one more time. Create a null or any object. I'm going to call this time. And bring up your F-curve. Drag the time in here. And you can see there's no animation. Right-click on the time and add a special track called time track. And it's a linear track. If I click here and press H, it shows a linear track. So now, what I'm going to do is drag this over here and drag, what else is animated over here? And drag my camera. There you go. So now I'm going to select my animation. Actually, no, it's my null. Anyway, my null. There you go. Now with my null selected, drag the time in here. So now the control as to how the frame ranges advance from 0 to 300 is controlled by this, not the timeline. That's what it does. Then let's go to the align to spline and do the same thing. Drag the time in here. And as long as the time is linear, nothing has changed at all. Nothing, nothing, nothing. Everything is exactly the same. But now I can go to this time track and start playing around. And I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to go and add an ease in here. So now it's accelerating. Okay? Accelerating, accelerating, accelerating here. Okay? So here I want it to have a bit of a boost. So I'm going to add a keyframe here and I'm going to boost it up. So it's accelerating, then it's going to accelerate a bit more. So it's going to accelerate. Then here it's going to accelerate more. And here I want it to decelerate. So I'm going to have that decelerate because it's going upwards. There you go. Now I'm going to pull this down. I'm just adding points by using my command key on the Mac or whatever you need on that PC. So now it's going to accelerate again here. There we go. And here we're going to come to the end and I'm going to make this ease at the end, something like this. So let's go and check this out now. So rewind, press play. So we start with a slight acceleration. I could have made it faster, I know, but I'm just illustrating a point here. I'm not making a piece of art. There you go. Acceleration, 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 acceleration. Then suddenly boost, then brake upwards. I think that's a bit too much. So what I'm going to do is get the boost to go further up. I'm going to undo and bring it over here. It's better if you see what I'm doing. So press spacebar to stop it. So I want it to brake over here, not over here. So I'm going to continue with a steady speed. So when you see a straight line, that's steady speed. Okay. Good. When it goes downwards, it's backwards. So I'm going to go over here. And you can see that my timing is too slow. You know something? I'm going to just grab all these and move them to the left. So now I'm timing it. I'm making the initial launch faster. And I'm doing my deceleration here instead of over there. And you can see that by controlling this spline and how much it accelerates or decelerates. So now we're going to see a bit of a slowdown here, which I can move a bit to the right. So we have a steady speed over here. Then it's going to slow down. It sorry, it's going to slow down here, then it's going to accelerate here, and it's going at a steady speed, and it goes right there at the end. I don't like the shape of this. There we go. Make it nice and round. If it looks nice and smooth, it's probably going to be smooth. Good. There we go. Something like this. Excellent. So let's close this, rewind, press play, and see what happens. There we go. Accelerating, bit of a braking motion, we turn left. And again, it's not the best camera move on the planet, but it shows you how you can go ahead and do things. Excellent. Now, by the end, and if I need to have some extra control, I can always add some sort of null or something like that. Or, even better, just to show you a nice trick I do, is you go to the text and you move it into place. Don't touch the camera. Just finish with your final logo. There you go. No one's going to know that I tricked it. And that's it for today. That is my way of animating a camera, and it will take you merely 5 to 10 minutes to set up if you're not talking and making mistakes like I did. And I hope you find it interesting. Please comment below and tell me if you find it useful in production, and add any ideas or anything you would like to see in the future. So, thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more tutorials on Noseman Nose, and a few surprises coming your way. Toodaloo.